Okay, so we're going to begin by drawing an isometric box, and the sides of the box will all be the same length, and their length will be the diameter of the circle. So in this case, I chose a circle with diameter of 1000 millimeters, and you'll see that my box has four sides of 1000 millimeters. Now it's an isometric box, so there will be vertical lines, but what should have been the horizontal lines will actually be drawn at 30-degree angles. Alright, so you can see me doing that here. And of course, you can do this for any circle, whatever the radius or whatever the diameter of your circle is, you can go ahead and do that. Okay, so we have already drawn the box, and I did some drawings off camera. I'm just going to explain it to you, right? So what we did was we divided our isometric box into 4 quadrants. So we have a middle line running down, that's EG, that's a vertical line, and then we have FH running at a 30-degree angle, and we connected several points. At this point in the video, I would advise you to pause the video and note where all the lines are going. So we have AG, right, line AG, we have line EC, we have line BD, which is a very long diagonal line, and then we have some major points. We have point M and point N. Right, so take note of all these points. Again, as I said, feel free to pause the video and take note of where. So once you've drawn the box and you have all the lines and you got to this point, you're pretty much halfway there. So what we're going to do is we're going to use point M as a center. Going to draw an arc using the radius as MG, or MF is the radius. And then we're going to use point N as a no, as another center. You can see me doing that here. And the radius will be NH, or the radius could also be NE, whichever one. So you draw these two arcs, and you are almost finished drawing your isometric circle. As simple as this. What we're going to do now is we're going to draw the other two arcs. So we're going to use A as our center, radius AG, and draw an arc connecting G to H. And then, as you may have guessed, we're going to use C as our next center and draw arc CE. Yep, that's CE. And voila, there you have it. This is your isometric circle. So what we're going to do from here is we're just going to highlight the 4 arcs, and we're going to go to our layer, and we're just going to change the layer, set it to the outline so that you can see it more clearly. And this is it. This is your isometric circle. It's one of the easier ways to construct an isometric circle, and as I would have said earlier, you can do it to any radius or diameter. And this circle was drawn on the right ISO plane. For those of us who are familiar with AutoCAD, you can also do it on the left ISO. Okay, so we're going to begin with a circle. It's the same size as our previous isometric circle. It has a diameter of 1000 millimeters. So we're using the same size, right? If you haven't viewed the previous isometric circle video, or the previous two actually, they will both be linked below. So what we're going to do now is we're actually going to draw a square and the sides of our square will be equal to the diameter of the circle. So the sides of our square will be 1000 millimeters, as you can see here. Right, so it touches the circle on 4 sides, and we're just going to draw a horizontal and a vertical diameter line or dividing line for the square. And what we're going to do is I'm just offsetting these lines with a distance of 125 millimeters in between them. So I'm putting some dividing lines and they're equally spaced. And what you will find is that the more dividing lines you have, the more accurate your isometric circle will be. So off camera, I just numbered the lines. You can see there from 0 to 4, with 0 being the center line and 4 being the outermost line. Right, so I've actually sped up the video a bit here. What I'm doing is wherever the lines cut the circumference of the circle, I'm going to draw a horizontal line and bring it out to the edge like this. So this video, the footage you are seeing now is actually at 2 times speed, right? Now once we have these lines, what we're going to do is we're going to get the dimensions. We're going to see what the spacing is from the base of the square to the lines. So the first one is 15.88 millimeters, and then from once we get that first distance, I just take the others from each subsequent line. So the second one is 51.11. The third is 102.44 millimeters. And these measurements are very, very important. Whatever size of circle you're using, you need these measurements. The last one is 330.72. All right. So these are the different distances, beginning from the base of the square and then the distance between each subsequent line. So we have those measurements. Excellent. This is very good. Now what we're going to do is we actually need to draw another isometric box. Again, going back to our previous video, you would have seen me draw an isometric box. It's not a square because the angles are not at 90 degrees, but it is a quadrilateral with all 4 sides being the same length, and 2 of the lines are at 30-degree angles, right? So you can see I'm checking the dimension here, and the length of each side is 1000 millimeters, which is the same as the diameter of our circle. Now what we do from here is we basically transfer measurements from the original drawing to the isometric box. So I'm going to draw a vertical line. I'm going to draw a 30-degree line like this, right? It's not horizontal, but at 30 degrees. So we have that. So we have our 4 quadrants. Right, so you can see that I took the vertical and horizontal diameters and I transferred them, just that it's not horizontal in the isometric box. And we're just double checking the measurements. They are 1000, as you can see. Now what we're going to do is the measurements that we had previously, I am going to draw some lines along one edge of my isometric box, and these lines will allow me to get the same spacing. So you can see me entering the dimensions, 102.44. Before that we had 51.11, etc., etc. And you can see that my final line does end at the midpoint, so everything is accurate. So I'm just going to copy my baseline now and place it at the spacing or at the end points of the lines that I just drew. Now you have to do the same thing for the top of your isometric box. right? I did it off camera just to save time, but you can see that they are basically a mirror image of each other, right? Good. Now what we do is you can see the spacing between my lines here is 125 millimeters, as I mentioned earlier. So what I'm going to do is I am going to get some 125 millimeter spacings on my drawing. So that's what I'm doing now. And then my vertical line, I'm just going to copy it to each 125 millimeter spacing. Alright, so we have to do this on both sides. We need the vertical lines on both sides of the isometric box. And again, I did it off camera to save time. Now you'll see here I have some circles highlighted. Now these are the points, these are the dots that we are going to connect. I just did it on one half of the circle just to highlight them. So from the bottom or the base of the circle where it says 0, so 0 will be in the middle, and then 1 will be 1 line higher, 2 will be 2 lines higher, 3 lines higher, 4 would be on the edge, and then you come back into 0. Alright, it's pretty straightforward, and the next step will be to actually draw the line. And you're gonna draw it all the way around because we are doing a circle. If you are doing an arc, you could draw a part of it. We're gonna use the spline command, spline fit, and you just come and you click by all the intersecting points, as you can see me doing here. You click there, you click, you come around, and then you come back down. So you just follow the order. So each time I get to an intersecting point, I click, and when I get back to my starting point, I press enter. And there you can already see the circle, or the isometric circle, in all its glory. So as usual, we begin with our isometric box, as you can see here, and the difference with this isometric curve or circle and the previous ones I did is that this one is laying as if it were on a table, whereas the others were standing on edge. Alright, I'm using the ISO draft command, and I'm in the isoplane top configuration. Alright, the steps are the same. This is the approximate method that we would have done before. So you identify, you have your midpoints, your center lines, your diagonal lines, and now I'm putting in these 2 additional lines that will give us the center points for the arcs that we are going to draw. So I'm using the arc command here, and this is our first center point. I didn't go ahead to label the points and all that because I did it in a previous video before, and it is linked below, or it will be linked below rather. But yeah, you can follow along either way. Alright, so we are almost finished, and this is our last arc, and you can already see we have our circle here. Now I don't want the entire circle highlighted, it's just the outer section, so I'm going to change the layer, as you can see here. And now I'm going to add the depth. So I selected these 2 arcs on the right side, I think you could say. So I'm adding the depth to the object and I'm just gonna go ahead and trim off the excess just for presentation's sake. Ideally you should leave your construction lines, all construction lines, right? In this instance, I'm just gonna delete it, right? Let me just fix that. I'm just gonna delete it just for the sake of presentation. All right, but that's it. This is our isometric curve. This is the front of the object that you saw at the beginning of the video. If you learned anything, please leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already.